You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Our bodies come in different shapes and sizes, so doesn't it make sense that our weight loss plan should too? Noom builds a personal plan that factors in dietary restrictions, medical issues, and other personal needs so your plan works for you. One of the things I love about Noom is that it doesn't feel restrictive. Instead of focusing on what you can't eat, it helps you develop a healthier relationship with food. You can still enjoy your favorite treats in moderation, which makes it a sustainable approach that I can actually stick to. If you're looking for a personalized weight loss program that actually works, I highly recommend giving Noom a try. It's a program that's helped me achieve my goals and feel better than ever. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com. Go check out Noom today.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Holiday, host of the History Tea Time YouTube channel and podcast. Katie and Nathan wanted me to let you know that this show is liberally sprinkled with colorful language. If profanity spoils your party, then this may not be the podcast for you. But if you enjoy expletives in your comedy history podcast, then I think you're going to love it. You may also like the taste of my podcast, History Tea Time, where I spill the tea on history. I profile remarkable queens and LGBTQ+ royals from across the world, explore royal family trees, put modern royalty into historic context, delve into topics like how women of the past gave birth and handled their periods, and much more.
Hi, this is Katie.
And this is Nathan.
And you're listening to Queen's Podcast, the show about women in history. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Queen's Podcast. Nathan, I am so excited for this episode.
I had never heard of this woman before like 2 weeks ago when we decided to cover her. And in case you didn't look at the title of this episode, Nathan, who are we talking about?
Yaa Asantewaa.
Yes. And who was she?
She was the queen mother of the Asante Empire and a warrior queen who refused to give up her culture and fought back against colonialization.
I do think we should say, if you look this up, it does look like Ashanti, but people from their region say Asante. And so let's say Asante.
Asante.
But Nathan, tell us about this cocktail you made for her.
A golden mimosa. I got some golden sprinkles and put them around the rim. And it was just basically a mimosa. So I put some mango juice with a little bit of champagne and a shot of elderberry liqueur. It's delicious.
The link with the gold is that where she came from was known as the Gold Coast for a long time.
Yeah, they had lots of gold, so that means that lots of people wanted their shit.
Before we get started, though, let's do some Patreon shout-outs. Thank you so much to our Patreon supporters, Riley and Nance.
Also, shout-outs to Maddie and Emmy Lou.
And thank you to all of our Patreon supporters at all levels and just,
people who listen.
Anybody listening to the show. If you're stopping by, welcome, y'all.
That was a good introduction.
Nathan, why don't you kick us off with our girl's introduction to the world?
All right. So our girl, Yaa Asantewaa, was born circa 1840 in modern-day Ghana. She was born into the Asante Empire.
But before we get started, Nathan, we've never covered Ghana in this show before. So why don't we do a little bit learning about the history and the backstory of that region? What do you think?
Yes, let's do it.
So Ghana, historically, like we already said with this cocktail, so much gold. Like they are gold, dripping in gold, like Guanza, as Nathan would say.
They like gold.
And once the Europeans find out about this, they are like, oh, we need to start trading with them. We need to start colonizing them. And they named what is in modern day Ghana, they named it the Gold Coast.
So let's go back about 200 years before Yaa was born, and let's meet a guy named Chief Aussie Tutu. He was the founder of the Asante. When he was living in a time where all these different tribes in the region were just fighting each other. So it was just
Yeah.
all separated and discombobulated, bumping heads.
And to make a really long story short, Aussie Tutu was basically like, guys, what if we didn't fight each other and we just became a people together? Like, what if we formed like one mega tribe? And then we can attack our enemies to the south. No one can fuck with us if we're like this big mega tribe. Yeah.
So he established the Asante basically. And Asante means, quote unquote, because of war. So basically, it was like, all right, because we're at war with the tribes from the south, we all need to get our shit together, work together, and clean house.
Get in formation.
Yes.
Yes. Come on, Asante, let's get in formation. Absolutely.
So when forming this new organization, they created this hierarchy within the tribes. So each local tribe would have their own chief, and that chief would report to a regional chief, who would then report to the king or the Asantehene, which was Aussie Tutu at the time.
I like that it's kind of like a regional government.
Yeah, it really is.
So one of the founders of the Asante Empire was Aussie Tutu's buddy. And this buddy was a priest, like a high priest dude. And the high priest dude claims that God gave him a golden stool. And God told him, whoever has the golden stool, not who sits on the golden stool. You're not supposed to sit on it because it's like a place for the spirit, like God. But whoever has the golden stool is ordained by God to be the true leader of the Asante people.
But in all seriousness, this is a solid gold stool. So not only is it a symbol of power, it's worth a shitload of money.
So just to give some context about the stool, in the Asante beliefs in their culture, a stool is a big deal. It's hugely symbolic.
Yeah, long story short, like the stool shows up at births, weddings, funerals. So it's this big symbology throughout your life and in their culture.
And it's on their flag. Like it was
Yeah.
even on the flag of the Asante people.
So
Like there was a stool.
pretty big deal. It
Yeah.
means a lot to them. So
Yeah.
both culturally and in general. And this is a solid gold stool, y'all.
Yes.
So
That only the king is supposed to have possession on, but even he can't sit on it. So another super interesting thing about the Asante culture is that they were into, I guess you would call it, it's not matriarchy because women couldn't become the leaders themselves,
Mhm.
but you inherit through women.
It's like a
in their culture.
matriarchal lineage sort of
Yes.
thing. It's not necessarily a
Yes.
matriarchy, but it does have matriarchal aspects to it.
I mean, compared to European cultures where it's like you're inheriting through your mother's line, fuck off.
Yeah.
No, this one they're like it's preferred. As a mother, you represent life force for your children, and like the father represents spirit, but you inherit through the mother's line. Clans are heavily focused on women maintaining family structure. So land, money, even titles were passed down through the mother's line. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, still, it's not quite matriarchal because, like, when someone would pass away, the uncle of the mom's side would inherit a lot of the stuff. So it still kind of went to men, but everything was decided through the
Better
mom's
than,
line.
I mean, the bar is on the floor.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, definitely. So when a couple was expecting a baby, they wouldn't have been disappointed if it was a girl, like we see in European history. So refreshing. They would be like, "Oh, yay, it's a girl!" Like they'd be excited.
Henry
about it.
VIII is at the door, being like, "Wait, what?"
That's how it worked.
That's okay. So the Asante also practice polyamory. The king, who was called the Asantehene, he would have multiple wives, but most guys had multiple wives. Like, what's the phrase? It takes a village.
Yeah.
Like that is literally what was happening here because the whole tribe basically raised the children. And it was because the women
would band together. And the women were so important that they would even choose the next leader, they would choose the next chief. The women had so much power in this society, which is so refreshing to see.
Right, but they can never be leaders because uterus.
Because uterus, oh
Yeah,
my God, Nathan,
literally,
come on.
literally.
That sneaky little
It,
uterus.
it really is like, it's like, oh, because you menstruate. When you menstruate, you can't touch the royal objects and certain artifacts. And so, while sure, this isn't great for the women in the clan that they can't be chiefs or leaders or anything like that, they did still hold a
Yes,
lot of respect in the community.
I love this.
The highest ranking position for a woman in the Asante culture is Queen Mother. So don't get it confused. We'll talk about
Yeah,
that in a second. But in this role, as the Queen Mother in their culture, you can appoint the next Asantehene. So you are responsible for nominating someone to vote for the next king.
right.
So that's a huge, huge responsibility.
Yeah, like you were saying, I think it's important we take like a little detour just to make a distinction here. Because when we've talked about queen mothers in this show before, we're usually talking about someone who is literally the mother of the king.
Mhm.
In this culture, the queen mother means something completely different. Like the queen mother is chosen by the king to basically be the head bitch in charge. You are the most powerful woman. And it could be his mother. It could also be any other woman that he knew. It could be his sister, his aunt, his grandma. Like it could be the lady that he knew from down the street. Like it doesn't matter. Anybody could be elected to be queen mother. Do you think I'm explaining that right?
Yes. I just liked any person down the street, any old lady down the street.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he met a lady down the street that was super smart. And he was like, fuck, that should be my queen mother.
I like that logic. That was really good.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the history of the Asante people. And I promise we will get to Yaa. We've just got to set up this whole thing first so you understand. So back to this guy, Aussie Tutu. He's got the gold stool. Now that the Asante are like this mega tribe, they do a lot of war digging. And they really take over a lot of other tribes. And when they conquer other tribes, any prisoners that they have, I mean, they're spoils of war, they become enslaved.
Yeah, and while I was never expecting to cover slavery in Africa, here we are. Ugh.
Here we are.
Yeah, and
History is icky.
Yeah, very icky. And enslaving
Yeah.
someone is never a good look. In this culture, if you were enslaved, you had some rights. So you could marry, you could acquire wealth, you could actually own other enslaved people. If your owner was mistreating you, you could actually petition the government to get a new one. And then you could eventually work your way out of enslavement and become free, and you would integrate into society at that point. So it wasn't like a lifetime sort of thing.
So it wasn't like how it was in the US.
Yeah, very much not like the United States.
So, like most of history, yeah, there's icky parts of the story. But during this time, this is what the Asante people were doing, and they lived in relative peace because the people weren't fucking with them, basically.
Yes.
Their reputation became that the Asante people kicked so much ass. Why would you even come up on
Don't
them?
even
You know what I
mess
mean?
with them.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And this is when our girl, Yaa Asantewaa, enters the room. And by that, I mean the delivery room. Because she was born around 1840. And fun fact, the name Yaa meant born on a Thursday. So we know she was born on a Thursday.
I just don't know what Thursday.
Right. There are some sources that say that she was born on October 17th of 1840, which would make her a Libra, though honestly, she gives me more Leo energy the more we get down this story.
She gives me Sagittarius energy. I mean, fire sign either way.
Yeah.
So not much is known about her early life. Her parents were both farmers, but like they were an influential family. So she would have grown up seeing her parents, both her mother and her father, being involved in local politics. So I think that really set the scene for her big clit energy that we're going to see later.
Yeah. At some point, we know that Yaa was married to a man, and that is literally it.
All we know about that.
There's no detail about this marriage, but she does end up having a daughter, which is literally all we know about it.
So I'm going to assume that it wasn't a child marriage, just from like context clues. Because later in the story, when we talk about her grandson would have been a full-fledged adult when she was in her like mid-50s. So I don't think it was a child bride kind of situation, which love it. Love to see that.
Because of the way the system was set up, she wouldn't have gone to live with her husband at the time. So a husband stayed at his mother's family's house, and she, Yaa, would have stayed and raised her daughter with her mother and her siblings that she had. So
just different than what we know, but it sounds like everybody was taken care of. There's nothing that I've read to indicate that she was unhappy with this setup.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, this is part of their culture.
Yeah, that's like all we know about her life leading up to when she becomes a status symbol, is that she was born into a fairly well-connected family. She married a man. She had a daughter. Neither of them have names. And she lived with her mother.
We also know that she had at least one older brother named Afran. Afran became chief of the Edweso community at some point. So this kind of speaks to why we believe that her family was well connected. They're very influential. So that's Yaa's life so far.
So now you know the history of the Asante people leading up to this point. You know where Yaa is. Nathan, I'm going to top off my beautiful cocktail.
Yes.
We'll be right back.
Deciding which credit card or loan is right for you is like trying to choose where you want to eat for dinner. Except when you finally get to the restaurant, the menu's riddled with jargon that no average foodie could understand. So at Credit Karma, we keep things simple. We show you personalized recommendations that align with your money goals and help you turn the confusing fine print into terms you can actually understand. And as a cherry on top, we provide a detailed overview for a new card or loan before you apply. That way, we can help you make decisions faster and with more confidence. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
Get your holidays started with the perfect tree in your perfect style from the Home Depot. Whether you want something that you can assemble in a few clicks, steal the show with over 2,000 color-changing bulbs, or a tree with lights that can be controlled by remote or foot pedal. The Home Depot has it all in our huge assortment of premium trees. Plus, get free delivery on over 2 million items this holiday from the Home Depot. Subject to availability, see homedepot.com/delivery for details.
And we're back. So in the time leading up to Yaa's birth, the Europeans had discovered that Ghana had so much gold.
So now they are just all over Ghana. And the Dutch owned this port known as the Gold Coast.
Right. The Asante worked and traded with the Dutch. And in return, the Dutch backed them when they needed money to like fight off the other tribes.
Mm-hmm.
And so they gave them like guns and weapons and shit. And in return, they traded gold with the Dutch.
The Dutch and the Asante had defeated the other side, who were backed by the British. So by the time Yaa is growing up, her people hate the fucking British right now.
And the British are like, yeah, right back at you, mate. It's fucking war, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Isn't it? By the time Yaa was in her 20s, the Asante had fought the British at this point already twice. Her people won, but it were long, drawn-out battles. They're called the Anglo-Asante Wars. And thousands of people died. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, you know, like in World War II, like everybody's grandma knew somebody that died in World War II. It was kind of the same thing. Everybody knew somebody that had died in these wars, but it wasn't just from the fighting. Malaria was also a big fucking deal in that time and place. And so, unsurprisingly, our girls already got like a bit of a taste in her mouth against the British people.
So let's fast forward a little bit. And it's 1872, and y'all would have been about 32. And like we said, her brother was chief of the Edweso tribe, and he came to his sister Yaa for advice. So she's on his council, essentially.
Yeah. A few years previous, this British explorer, he comes to the Asante lands and he's talking to the Dutch and he's like, oh my God, this is so much fucking gold. Do you know I'm from Great Britain and we love colonizing places? Like
Yeah.
there's something I read that was like a British person writing home being like, the chief's gold ornament that he wears around his neck is too heavy for his neck, so he has 2 servants carry it. Like
Yeah.
it was all gold, everything.
Yeah, like if you were a commoner, just a plain Jane, like I'm talking low
Normal.
on the totem pole,
Yeah, like
you
us.
would have a bracelet that would have a gold nugget hanging from it.
Yes.
And in today's life, that's like, oh my God, that's a shitload of money just hanging up.
They just gold grew off the fucking trees. And when the Europeans found out about that, they came both figuratively and sexually.
You're so stupid. You're so stupid.
I know, I'm the dumbest bitch in the world.
I love it. It's 1872, and the Brits and the Dutch strike up a deal, and they sell their Gold Coast port to the British. Which I'm sure the Asante were like,
what the fuck? These have been our enemies for...
Yeah, what?
We've been literally killing these people, and now, what?
Yeah, they are not happy about it.
No.
Let's just put it that way.
So they start to, quote unquote, trade, and by that, of course, we mean colonize with the Asante people, which the British are so good at colonizing. They, 10 out of 10.
Do not recommend.
Do not recommend, but if you want a colonizer, hey.
You got somebody that's real good at it. If you don't know what colonialization is, you've been living under a rock.
Yes.
But basically, it's a wealthy, developed country sees a second, third world country and is like, ooh, we can make a lot of money out of that. So they start, quote unquote, trading with the new and undeveloped country.
Exactly. And by trading, Nathan put heavy air quotes in case you couldn't hear that. It's never a fair trade when you're colonizing. That's how you come in and be like, no, we're trading. But like we talked about this in the Empress Sichi episode. Mm-hmm. They were, quote unquote, trading opium for tea with China. And then all these people were addicted to opium, and that made it easier for them to like get a foot in. A whole bunch of people died in that. It's never an equal trade. It's always we make more money in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's designed to like weaken your economy as a tribe or whatever so that they can overpower you at that point because you're weakened. It's
what famous historians have called a dick move.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, in this case, the Brits traded rum, guns, and knives, and in return, they got gold and enslaved people.
Not really the same. I mean, look, I like rum.
But
rum or gold, I'll take the gold. Like it's not a fair trade.
Yeah, you're basically just being like, hey, get drunk and I'm just gonna take your gold.
Yes. The saddest part is that some of these enslaved people knew they were going to the modern day United States, but they thought they were going with the same deal that they had with the Asante people, where it's like, you can sue if you have a bad, quote unquote, owner. You can buy your way to freedom. And that wasn't what it was in the United States. And so that fucking sucks for those people.
So very different. But to be clear, any slavery is wrong in every form.
Queen's podcast statement.
Hot take.
Hot take over here. Slavery, don't do it. So anyway, so the British have set up the British Gold Coast is what they call it. And it's a colony, and they have a huge goal around colonizing the Asante people, like they did with India, where like you are annexed into the British Empire, which is very on brand for the British in the 19th century. Like we've already said, look at Empress Sichi, look at Rani of Jhansi. They are both contemporaries of Yaa.
Yep, and the Brits are gonna Brit, and they try to start war with Asante again. And they thought, oh, third time's a charm, right?
Yeah.
Because this time they actually had a cure to malaria, so that's a big one because they were able to survive. And they had created the thing called a machine gun,
known as the Third Anglo-Asante War. And even with the advantage of a cure for malaria, which back then was like radical, and having machine guns, the conflict went on for an entire year.
Ugh.
And the Brits were not expecting that. They didn't know who they were fighting.
Yeah.
Because the Asante people are like fucking brutal when it comes to war. So it's like the British were like, oh, this will be done in like a month. No, a year. Because you must not know about me.
But in the end, the British did barely squeak out a win.
Yeah.
And they were very sore winners.
They were assholes about it.
Yeah, they like march into the capital city of Kumasi and they burnt it to the ground.
Which is honestly fucking rude.
Totally unnecessary.
Totally unnecessary. Thousands were killed. And it's just, again, I hate to keep bringing up these scholarly terms, but it was a dick move. Like, it was just...
very dick move. And Yaa is pissed.
Of course she is.
She's witnessed the massacre of thousands of people at the hands of these white guys who pretend that they want to trade with you, but all they really want is your gold. And unlike some of the Asante, she's not afraid to speak up to the white man. She has opinions, and she's not afraid to voice them. Enter Big Clit Energy.
Remember, we said that her brother was chief of the Edweso, and he's been relying on his sister as advisor for his entire reign, basically.
Yeah, and because of Yaa's big sexy mouth, she has appointed her as Queen Mother. So y'all, this, again, we talked about the Queen Mother. This is a big fucking deal.
Well, like the Queen Mother got to appoint people to the government.
Yeah.
She got to nominate the next king. She also got to act as spiritual advisor to the king, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, this is that like spiritual guru thing. But Queen Mother's also served in court. So she would be the judge over any disputes that were brought on by women. So
I hope her advice was always dump his ass.
I'm sure it was.
Dump his ass.
Yeah,
really.
and she kind of does act like a queen regent because when the king is away, she steps in and runs the government.
She had serious power. I love that they recognize that women can be a source of information, like...
And effective leaders, even military. Like, she was in charge of the army, too, whenever the king's away.
Yes.
So this is a woman that has, by any woman standards that we've covered, she has enormous power.
So we love this for her, except there's one big problem. Now that the British have come in, they have pinned the Asante people against each other. So they are having a fucking civil war. So we're not going to spend too much time on the Civil War, but what you need to know is it lasted 5 years.
Ugh.
And it really weakened, it only helped the British. It weakened the Asante, and they're just getting more and more colonized in that 5 years.
Yeah, and eventually things calmed down, and the tribes ended up electing a new Asantehene, aka king, and his name was Prempeh. So put a pin in that because he will be important.
During the time of the Civil War, Yaa's brother died, which I just wish we had anything from. We don't have any kind of journals or anything. But I would have to assume that it probably broke her heart when her brother died. Because they were, hey, he named her an advisor, like when he was like low-level government.
So they were close. Yeah, they had to have been close.
No facts, just vibes.
Yeah.
But I think so,
Yeah.
right?
He trusted her, obviously, went to her for advice, so they had to have been close.
He was probably someone that was very dear to her, so I'm sure. And it doesn't seem like he was that old. I think he actually died fighting in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure it broke her heart a little bit, you know?
Y'all's looking around at the Asante Kingdom, and this shit is decimated.
Yeah.
The British came in, burned the capital, and after that, everyone starts fighting each other. And now I'm starting to notice that there's some more white folks with funny accents coming in my backyard trying to be friends, y'all. And it's the German and the French. So now it seems like word about this gold-rich country has spread across Europe.
Yeah.
Germany, France, these assholes are just like walking onto people's property, starting to dig up gold. And
just be like, can we? They're like, hello, this is our house.
This is my house.
Yaa is so respected in her community that she is acting as regent for the time in between when her brother died and before a new chief for their area was appointed. And because uterus, she just couldn't be flat out ruler. But at this point, the country as a whole are looking to her more and more as sort of like, this woman has been a constant. More and more people are looking to her, and her lore is kind of growing.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's her responsibility to appoint a new chief of the Adwiso people.
So she elects her grandson, Kofi Tene, and she gets to remain basically head bitch in charge this whole time. But
yeah,
from behind the scenes,
it makes me think of the Empress Wu behind the litter curtain.
Yeah, being able to like pull some strings and get things done while her grandson is like the face of everything.
So let's rewind back to politics real quick. Now the British have sat back and watched the Asante people fight each other. They're like, okay, we're going to end this since we started it in the first place. And we're going to make a quote unquote deal with the new king, Prempeh. The quote unquote deal is like, hey, what if we just own your land? And what if you were just part of the British Empire? And in return, we'll give you protection. But historically, who have they needed protection from?
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually the British that you needed the protection from. Yeah. So this wasn't much of a deal for Prempeh. Obviously, he's not willing to give up his entire country. So he's like, okay, why don't we just make a truce? So he sends a group of his most trusted generals and advisors to England to strike up some negotiations. He's sending them gifts of gold, cocoa, rubber, and his best soldiers. Oh, this sounds like a good time.
Hey, Vicky, Queen Vicky.
Yeah, having a good old time.
Except, you know what? Victoria was a fucking prude.
Yeah.
So she was like, I don't want all these kinky gifts. I just want to own you. Prempeh had sent over a delegation to like meet with Queen Victoria, and it was like all his best soldiers. So they're off in London. So the British people come in and they are like, what a great time to fucking take the city. when
I know, it's like, oh my gosh.
And so they capture Prempeh. And they took the Asante people, like, basically they were like, it is ours now, whether you like it or not.
And they demand a ransom for Prempeh, which they also pose as a, quote, reparations for cost incurred from all these wars that they've started with the Asante people.
That you've literally started.
So they're charging them for a war that they started. And they demand 50,000 ounces of gold.
That's a lot of gold.
Is roughly about $80 million in today's
money. Oh my God.
Yeah, they're like, and you need to give us $80 million. And they're like, oh, we don't have that.
Prempeh can't fucking can't afford that shit.
Yeah.
Sure, they had gold, but like 1.5 tons of gold? No. And so the British loot all of the gold out of the palace and they ship it back to the British Museum, which it is still at. And I went down a rabbit hole about the British Museum. They have literally a law called the British Museum 1963 Act, where it says you can't give people their shit back.
Like, what?
And so the Asante people in modern day Ghana have asked for all their shit back. And the British say, sorry, legal, isn't it? You know, like...
Legal, isn't it? Yeah, their museum has not only the Asante people stuff.
Oh, like there are so many countries. Way.
Yeah, so Yaa and her grandson were very, very vocal when it came to calling out all the bullshit that was going on. So
Yeah.
Kofi Tene was regularly going to the capital to support Prempeh, while Yaa stayed behind to run the day-to-day shit.
Yeah, but unfortunately, this became a problem when the British decided to take Dick Move to the next level.
So they decide that while Prempeh is still in Ghana, he can actually cause trouble for them. So they were like, we don't need any more revolts, so let's get him out of sight, out of mind. So they send him into exile into the Seychelles Islands, which is like 4,000 miles away.
But it wasn't just the king who was exiled. They also took all of his most powerful advisors and supporters, which included Yaa's grandson, Kofi.
Yeah, and they forgot that women still had a significant amount power.
Yeah, well, I think that's so funny. They were just like, let's exile all the most important people, and they didn't exile any women in a society
where women
are important.
Yeah, so
they just didn't fucking know. Why don't we ponder that hilarious double standard mixed up on top of our drinks? We'll be right back.
With Uber Reserve, good things come to those who plan ahead. Family vacay? Reserve your ride as soon as you book your flights. To all the planners, now you can reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. See Uber app for details.
This is an ad for BetterHelp. Welcome to the world. Please read your personal owner's manual thoroughly. In it, you'll find simple instructions for how to interact with your fellow human beings and how to find happiness and peace of mind. Thank you, and have a nice life.
Unfortunately, life doesn't come with an owner's manual. That's why there's BetterHelp Online Therapy. Connect with a credentialed therapist by phone, video, or online chat. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more. That's BetterHelp.com.
And we are back.
So now the British are like, okay, y'all are effectively a conquered people now. The governor of the Gold Coast was this guy named Fred Hodgson. And he's like, all right, y'all, hand over all your goods, including that golden stool of yours. And all the Asante people did that. They're like, excuse me.
The stool? Like, the British people did not understand that it wasn't just a gold chair.
Yeah.
They didn't understand that the cultural significance around it. It'd be like rocking up into the Vatican and being like, give me that funny hat you wear. You know, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
I want that funny hat that you're wearing. It's mine now.
Yeah, so Yaa was like, hell to the fucking no. Like, she was like, this is literally like if we were handing over to England our ancestry, like our entire, like, no, we're not fucking doing that. This is sacred to us. Fuck that. They have over fucking stepped.
And the official response from the Asante people was, quote unquote, we can't find it.
It's around here somewhere. I don't know.
It seems to be lost, which I love that. Now, maybe that is true because there was some rumors that Prempeh actually did hide the golden stool because he knew that was going to be something that they were after. So it's totally plausible that he did that. So whether it was true or not, we don't really know. But what we do know is Fred Hodgson, he's not buying it. He thinks
He's not buying
he's
it.
like, oh, y'all are just
Yeah.
joshing.
So Yaa, she like hears that all this shit is going on. She travels to the capital to meet with all the folks in power and who haven't been sent to exile. And when she gets there, the British are like ripping apart the palace. They are looking for the stool. They come up empty-handed, and this is when we get this quote from fucking Fred over here, sent by Queen Victoria, who not my favorite person in this story.
Yeah, no.
Nathan, when was the last time we did some Queen's podcast theater?
We have not done Queen's podcast theater in quite
In a
some
hot
time.
fucking minute. So Nathan, would you please read this quote from fucking Fred?
Okay, I'm gonna channel fucking Fred. What must I do to the man, whoever he is, who has failed to give to the queen, who is the paramount power in the country, the stool to which she is entitled? Where is the golden stool? Why am I not sitting on the golden stool at this moment? I am the representative of the paramount power in this country. Why have you relegated me to this chair? Why do you not take the opportunity of my coming to Kumasi to bring the golden stool and give it to me to sit upon?
Ew. Honestly, I have the ick so hard for Fred right now. Like,
yeah, and I'm sure y'all's like, bitch, what?
What the fuck? They're shook. These people have shipped all their leaders off to another country. And so they're like, what the fuck do we do? All their best military leaders are also in London. So it's like, what? How do we even fight back?
But remember, Yaa is Queen Mother at the time. And her grandson and the king are now both in exile. So that makes Yaa the most powerful person in the Asante Kingdom.
It sure fucking does, Nathan.
Yes. So in continuing with Queen's Podcast Theater, we have a couple of baller-ass quotes that we have from Yaa, which is a rare thing for us, as we usually don't get quoted things.
And at least quotes this baller.
Yeah, and from a woman of color,
Yes.
too. Like, because we don't get that either. So, and that's somebody who fought back against the British invasion at that. So this is amazing that we have these quotes.
Now, I have seen that some of you fear to go forward to fight for our king. If it were in the brave days of Aussie Tutu, leaders would not sit down to see their kings taken away without firing a shot. No white man could have dared to speak to the leader of the Asante in the way that the governor spoke to you this morning. Red poor filth.
So she goes on and she says, is it true that the bravery of the Asante is no more? I cannot believe it. It cannot be. If you, the men of the Asante, will not go forward, we, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight the white men. We will fight till the last of us falls in the battlefield.
Yes. Yes.
Yaa Asantewaa.
Big clit energy, big tit energy, big dick energy, whatever she wants to identify with. It is big and it is here. Oh.
But wait,
there's more.
There's more. So there's, in this matriarchal society, she can throw in some deep cuts. So how can a proud and brave people like the Asante sit back and look while the white man took away their kings and chiefs and humiliated them with a demand for the golden stool? The golden stool only means money to the white men. They have searched and dug everywhere for it, and I shall not pay 1 penny to the governor. If you, the chiefs of the Asante, are going to behave like cowards and not fight, you should exchange your loincloths for my undergarments.
Basically being like, here, you want some panties? Is that what she's saying?
Yes.
Like, she's like, you want some bras? You want some panties?
Yeah, do you need some panties? Yeah. Sounds like you're not able to do the job.
Like, y'all don't want to fight? You know who does want to fight? Me. Because she was like in her 50s at this point, too.
Yeah. She's not fucking around. Like, this is like such Big energy.
So after she did this, supposedly, she grabbed a shotgun and fired it into the roof just to be like, did I fucking stutter? And I am in love with her.
I know. This whole like speech that she gives, I was like, oh my God. We have not, like, we've seen a couple of women in our that we've covered that have said some great things, but I have to say this is one of the things that tops them all, in my opinion.
I love this for her. And after this, she became a figurehead of the rebellion, basically, as well as actually physically leading the rebellion.
Yeah.
She's a figurehead, but she was actually in the streets pulling people into the rebellion. A vote was taken to appoint new leaders to the troops. She was, it was like, oh, yeah, the Queen Mother. Let's pull her
this
in.
is like the first time and only time in the Asante history that a woman was appointed to that post. So huge deal. This woman inspired a nation.
Yes.
Suddenly people are all energized again, where before they were just ready to throw up their hands and give up.
They were like, oh, we may as well just let them have it.
She inspired people. Yeah. And she ended up raising an army of over 5,000 fighters, and they were ready to sacrifice their lives, all led by a woman in her 60s, which is amazing.
I love it. And in March 1900, the Asante attacked their occupiers. Well, this conflict is officially known as the Fifth Anglo-Asante War. It's sometimes also called the War of the Golden Stool, and it's sometimes called the War of Yaa Asantewaa.
Okay.
Period.
Okay.
Do you have any wars named after you, Nathan?
I wish. I know some men have fought over me before,
Oh.
but we haven't declared war yet. A lot of men supported Yaa, and they believed in her, but this war also had a huge support from women who were also ready to fight.
Yeah.
And if they couldn't fight, the women had another way to support the war effort. So the Asante women band together and refused to sleep with their husbands if they didn't fight for the Queen Mother. They went on sex strike.
Sex strike. Sex strike for freedom. I love that they were like, yes, we can't fight because we have to stay here. But if you're not going to fight, you're not getting
You
fucked.
know how quickly we would have reproductive freedom if all the women refused to sleep with their husbands until those rights were restored.
Yeah.
See how quickly withholding sex will work.
So we're not going to go into details about this conflict because it was long and it was bloody. If you are interested in war, this would be an interesting war to look up, the Fifth Anglo-Asante War. But thousands died on both sides. It was fucking horrendous. But at the end, unfortunately, the Asante lost and the Brits did take over their land.
Yeah, Yaa was captured and sent into exile on the same island that her grandson was on. But we couldn't find any more information about what her life was in exile, or if she got to see her grandson. But we do know that she lived for another 20 years, and she ended up dying in 1921, and she was well into her 80s.
Regardless of what the condition of her exile was, I don't think this bitch regretted a single thing she ever did. Like, I think she was like, oh, if I knew I was going to end up in exile, no, I'd still do it again, but harder.
Yeah. So what happened to the stool?
That is a good question, because the Brits never got their little paws on it.
Someone recreated a fake one and gave it to them, and though the British likely at that time were like, this ain't real. So they were just like, whatever, I don't want your stupid stool anyway. You can keep it.
In 1902, the year after the rebellion, the British did annex the Asante Empire. 3 years after Yaa's death, King Prempeh and all his buddies and all their associates that were exiled, they got to come home. How long have they been exiled? Like 40 years or some shit?
it
Like,
was.
God damn it.
Yeah.
So he got to come home. And like his very first act back as like a reinstated king was like, oh, we need to take Yaa's remains and bring her over here and give her a proper burial.
So in 1920, while building some railroads, some guys found the Golden Stool in its hidden spot. I don't know what they did with it, but they vandalized it in some way. They were arrested and sentenced to death, but the British got them out before the sentence could be carried out.
This put the stool back in the hands of the Asante because they actually didn't know where it was. So remember earlier we were talking about like, do they know?
They didn't know. They didn't fucking know.
They found it and they were able to put it back into like their protection. You know what I mean?
I love that.
I love that too. Unsurprisingly, the royal family got real protective of the stool, and no one ever knows exactly where it is except for the immediate family of the royal family.
Makes sense, because this stool is probably worth a lot of money.
It's only brought out for social events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, that's the end of Yaa's life, but her legacy is
oh my God.
huge in Ghana.
Nathan, they have schools named after her. They have a museum. Like, she is such a big fucking deal in Ghana, and I love that.
Yeah, she's like a symbol of national pride for them because she's the person that tried to stand up against the British and fight back. And so she represents, standing up for her culture. So, yeah.
Fast forward a little bit after her death to World War II. Suddenly, occupying countries that don't want you there is a bad look.
Yeah.
Once white people do it to themselves, it's a bad look. Yes.
That's a fair assessment.
So eventually Ghana gets their independence. So they were called the Gold Coast before then. They get their independence and they call themselves Ghana. And they were the first of the sub-Saharan African colonies to win their independence.
That's awesome. So Ghana is the first, like you said, first African sub-Saharan country to get the Europeans out of their government.
I think Yaa would be so proud of that.
Yay.
So let's raise a drink to Yaa Asantewaa.
Yes, bitch.
Nathan, did you have so much fun researching this one?
It was so much fun because it was different. We got a matriarchal society. We got to see colonialization again. And we also, got to see a powerful woman who didn't take no shit.
Cheers, bitches.
Hey, history fans, if you enjoy shows like Queen's Podcast, then you'll love Airwave History Plus, now available on Apple Podcasts. Airwave History Plus is your ticket to ad-free listening to Queen's Podcast, plus bonus content and early episodes from dozens of the most popular history shows, including History That Doesn't Suck, History Tea Time, History of Everything, Ancient History Fangirl, Who Did What Now, The Box of Oddities, The Age of Napoleon, and more. To get your free trial, go to the Apple page for Queen's Podcast and hit subscribe, or search Airwave History Plus on Apple Podcasts. Airwave History Plus, the essential audio destination for history lovers.